So are you ready to change directions? You can decide at any time, but midlife does seem to be a common time when we think about, well, life, death, we're doing what we're doing in this time on earth and how we're doing it all. Of course, my next guest does say, go ahead, make a U-turn. She talks about it and more in her latest release, U-Turn, Changing Direction in Midlife. Good morning to you, Dr. Nancy Irwin.
Oh, thank you, Shelley. A pleasure to be here, especially since you got the right last name.
Say we are, I'm sure somewhere we're related, but to my knowledge, we're not first cousins, but what a great name we share. And there's a couple of, I've got Wynn and Kyle Irwin in our area that I'm not related to. So I think we're a good breed. Let's put it that way.
I think so, absolutely.
Of course, you formerly an introduction, a pre-licensed psychologist and therapeutic hypnotherapist. You spending your time in L.A. now?
Yes, that's right. This is home, here with all the celebrities and a lot of fun in Hollywood.
Good. Well, that's nice because some say it's not, but I appreciate your glass half full. Let's get into a bit of conversation. Again, many hats you wear, Dr. Irwin. Your book, U-Turn, Changing Directions in Midlife, of course, over 40 stories from people over 40. So that first question that we get out of the way is 40 midlife?
Technically, it is. It's one of those things that changes with the generations. Now, as we're beginning to live longer, middle age, I think in a few years will be considered 50 and older. So that's the way I look at it. You decide how long you want to live, and you find your own midpoint. But there is a natural tendency after we've had a certain number of years in the workforce, about 20 years after college, whether or not you go. After that time, you have a pattern of behavior. You're able to see if the direction you've been going in works for you and if you want to continue or not. When you think about that, the midpoint of any sort of process gives you an opportunity to go, okay, are we really going the right way? Do we want to continue, or is there another road to go? So it's a wonderful time to review and make a new choice because it's certainly not too late in your 40s.
You bet. What gave you the impetus to actually bring stories to life? Were more and more of either your clients or your friends having a need to change direction in midlife?
Friends and family members. It was because I made my own U-turn at age 44. I had theretofore made my living as a stand-up comic. I had a modicum of success. Yeah, I worked with some people. I don't know if you've ever heard of these guys, but Jerry Seinfeld, Ray Romano. Yeah. Nobody big, nobody very talented. But I was staff MC at the Melrose Improv here in Hollywood, and it was going well. But, when you're a comic, you only work about 30 minutes a day. So I was bored. I had a lot of free time, and I started volunteering in my community for a shelter for sexually abused teenagers. I absolutely fell in love with it. It waked up the healer in me, and it just underscored I wasn't really fulfilled in entertainment anymore, and it was time to make a U-turn and do something else. So I went back to school, got my doctorate in psychology, and I now specialize in the field of sexual abuse recovery, prevention, and rehabilitation of sex offenders. So I always tell people if they don't know what they want to do, or if they do know they want to make some sort of change, a great place to start looking is to volunteer in the community because you have no idea what that will wake up in you, what sort of untapped facets or talents you may have, because we all have many gifts. And if you go to school and get a degree in accounting and you're an accountant for 20 years, that could be great if you're fulfilled. But if you feel like there's something missing and you're not sure what it is, get out and do some selfless giving because that, ironically, is the best way to see who you truly are.
You bet. Well, I want to ask, of course, you to share a story or two, what is in common, but most of my listeners know that I practiced physical therapy for 15 years, and when I was 38, decided to make the change, and here we are speaking, Dr. Irwin, so it kind of gives me chills to know that was a 2-year progression for me, and I look forward to every day, so I believe in this. Over 40 stories from people over 40. Dr. Irwin, can you share another story or two, please?
Well, I have them divided into two parts. Those who change by default, meaning life happened to them. Either they were dumped, got divorced, got fired, laid off, or stricken with an injury or illness or some sort of tragedy. And the others were those like me who just life, all of a sudden delivered a message. You know what? don't like this anymore, want to make a change. So they were either by choice or by default. Either way, the changes can be made. One of my favorite ones is a woman who sadly, her daughter committed suicide. And in going through her things in college, she discovered this girl had been sending money to an orphanage in India. And
wow.
She was just kind of, it was fine. Money was no issue for them, but she was just kind of flummoxed as to, what attracted my daughter to an orphanage in India of all places. So something told her to fly there. She did, and she was just overwhelmed by how many children are affected by leprosy. Their parents have leprosy, and their limbs begin falling off. They can't care for their children, so all of these children, their needs aren't being met. So cut to the chase, this woman started a foundation in her daughter's memory for the children of the leprosy affected so they can get sufficient schooling, education, health care, et cetera. That's the first story in my book, actually, because just talk about turning lemons into lemonade. Just an amazing story. And then there's some that are much simpler. That's a pretty grandiose one. There's some that are much simpler, like a board secretary decided in her 50s that she wanted to sell real estate. So she got a real estate license, and voila, now makes tons of money and loves what she does.
That's great. Again, Dr. Nancy Irwin with us. U-turn, changing direction in midlife, over 40 stories from people over 40. Does this mean, let me throw out that stereotype, that did you find some stories of the gentleman who needed the red car convertible? Is that a normal midlife crisis, for lack of a better term?
Those guys, sometimes they did that, and then they were able to see that the hot blonde and the Porsche convertible didn't really buy them any ego points because it's an inside job. Fulfillment comes from within. You can't get it from anything out there. Facelift some of those things can make you feel good, and there's nothing wrong with those, but if you're looking on those to define you and really give you the meaning and fulfillment and make you feel young again, it just doesn't last very long. So, yes, some people did that, but then they were able to do the inside work and do something that was uniquely them and was their own form of self-expression to make a difference in the world.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the necessary, and obviously I'm feeding the question, family support with a change of direction.
Well, some people unfortunately did not get that, and some people let go of a relationship that was not fully supportive of them. And while that sounds sad, and I would never wish that on anyone, if someone is not truly there for you, wanting you to be the best you and make a healthy change for yourself and be more uniquely who you are, then that may not be the best relationship for you. If they're threatened by this change, by you going back to law school at age 60 or whatever you choose to do, then you might want to let that go and find a more appropriate partner who does honor the real you.
What else do we need to know?
Most people are geared to feel that change is hard, that it's scary. And my take on it is that change can be actually very creative and fun. Change is good because the deal is we're only born with two fears, and those are for our protection back in the jungle. We're born with the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That being said, all the other fears are learned, including the fear of aging, the fear of getting a new job, the fear of getting divorced. All of those fears are learned because society gives us these, heuristic stereotypes of, after this age, you're never going to be able to find another man. Your chances of getting a job past age 60 are blah, 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 and all those statistics, and they're just not the truth.
So you ever hang out at open mic nights anymore?
I really don't. If it called me, then I certainly would. But fortunately, I'm on stage quite a bit. I do a lot of media appearances and public speaking, and that satisfies the ham in me wanting to be on stage. And I do get to use my humor when appropriate, of course, in speaking and even in the clinic. I love what I do now, and it's incredibly fulfilling. So I just, I still go to comedy clubs and support it and love it.
Yeah. Where does one start if they're listening to our conversation and they're saying, you know what, I've always wanted to do this, to be that, to of course, get involved in this. What's the action item?
First of all, know that it's never too late. It may be too late to be a supermodel if you're 45 and you're only 5'2". That may not be appropriate. However, that doesn't mean you can't find an ancillary job in that business. You may start a modeling agency. You may become a coach for young models. Same thing with ballet or sports. It may be too late for you to be an NFL linebacker, but you can be a fundraiser for a little league team, for instance. You could start a ballet studio. There's all sorts of ancillary jobs that support those things, so you still are fulfilling your dream and putting your passion into that industry. And a great way to begin, if people don't know what they want to do, is start by just making a list of all the things you have ever enjoyed doing. No matter how small they are, discount nothing. If you like making guacamoles and you feel like you're good at it, write that down. You have no idea how you can build that into a career or blend that into another one or use that to bump up your existing one. Because that's another thing. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to leave your current career. You just find a way to enhance it. And then another great thing is to write down what your values are.
Yeah. Nice. Huh?
Write down all the things that you are good at. All the things you've ever done and you've enjoyed doing may be different than the things you're good at. They probably will overlap it, but they certainly can be distinctly different. And this is good information to find out more traits about you, to get a whole composite of who and what you are. And then write down a list of all the things you wanted to be when you grow up, when you were a kid. Think back when you were 5, and whenever people asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, write those down. Again, maybe too late to be an astronaut, but you may be able to get a job with NASA somehow, some way, or train to study rocket science or engineering. So it is never too late to find the way you can fit in the world you've always wanted to be in.
Yep. See, I always wanted to be in the radio. Just took a few
Then
years.
do the research. See where you have to go to school, who can help you, and it may be quite a long path just to plan that, but it can be fun just getting started on that. You're already making the change.
Well, thank you for, of course, talking about it, for gathering the stories, and, of course, sharing your own personal story. U-turn, changing direction in midlife. Over 40 stories from people over 40. Dr. Nancy Irwin, please share a website or Facebook, please.
Oh, thank you so much. With Facebook, it's Dr. Nancy Irwin, NancyIrwin. Same thing on Twitter and LinkedIn. And my websites are drnancyrwin.com. That's just DrNancyIrwin.com. And also for the book, it's www.makeauturn.com. And there's a hyphen between you. And just so listeners know, it is a visual. It's YOU-turn because you turn your life around.
You've got it down. Dr. Irwin, thank you very much for your time and your talents.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelley.
Again, no relation.